We worship. We worship the God who was. We worship the God who is. We worship the God who evermore will be. He opened the prison doors. He parted the raging sea. My God, He holds the victory. There's joy. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. And we won't be crying. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. And we won't be crying. We shout out your praise. We shout out your praise. We sing to. We sing to the God who heals. We sing to the God who saves. We sing to the God who always makes a way. 'Cause He hung up on that cross and He rose up from that grave. My God still knows the storms away. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. And we won't be crying. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. And we won't be crying. We shout out your praise. We shout out your praise. See, we were the beggars. We were the beggars. Now we're royalty. We were the prisoners. Now we're running free. We are forgiven, accepted, redeemed by His grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. Sing that again. We were the beggars. Now we're royalty. We were the prisoners. Now we're running free. We are forgiven, accepted, redeemed by His grace. Let the house of the Lord sing praise. Let the house, oh, let the house of the Lord sing praise. Let the house, oh, let the house of the Lord sing praise. One more time, oh, let the house of the Lord sing praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. And we won't be crying. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. And we won't be crying. We shout His joy. There's joy in the house of the Lord. There's joy in the house of the Lord today. And we won't be crying. We shout out your praise. There's joy in the house of the Lord. Our God is surely in this place. And we won't be crying. We shout out your praise. We shout out your praise. We shout out your praise. We shout out your praise.
Oh, I gotta be honest. I love pulling through all the sweaters, layers, jackets. There's just something fun about getting all cozy. It's the best. I'm Pat. I'm one of the pastors on the team. If we have not yet met, and I want to say welcome to everyone online too. We are in this series. We're in this season where we are looking at what are the values that we have as a church family. Here at Overlake, what is the culture? 'Cause really, culture is how you're living out your values. Well, what's that mean for us? And so that's what we're spending time on each week. And what we're realizing and what we're pursuing is that we want to become just more and more and more like Jesus. And what we're realizing, what we're seeing, what we're understanding is that happens when we know we belong to Jesus and we belong to one another. That genuinely, it's not just an individualized faith, but it's a family. It's a body. And so we're pursuing that together. We've been going through each letter of the word belong, each one a different value. The letter O is in the word belong, I've been told, and the value is ownership. The value is ownership. And before I go even any further, I actually would love to open in prayer, and then we're going to dive right into some great scripture. Lord, I just ask that we would better understand, we would better know, and that we would better experience who you are, that we might become more and more like you. And so we want to open ourselves to transformation. We want to open ourselves to what it is that you would have for us, and we mean that as individuals, as families, as family units, and we mean that as a church. Would Overlake look more and more like you? Would people look at this community of people and see you, see your son, see Jesus? And we pray all this in your name. Amen. Amen. Well, as I was kind of thinking of how best to tee this up, my mind went to this, to just help unpack this theme, this whole concept of ownership. And so maybe in your mind, go back, if it helps to close your eyes. I always close my mind when I'm going back. I don't know why. Go back to when you made your first big purchase growing up, when you had to save, and then you spent it on something you really, really wanted. Or maybe you recently made a really big purchase, and you actually don't even have to go back all that far. But think of something that you invested in. Personally, for me, it was my sophomore year, and I bought this guy right here. I bought this. This truck is screaming, tell me you grew up in Spokane without telling me you grew up in Spokane. This is a 1992 Dodge Dakota 4x4. Club cab. You guys see those extra windows? Yeah, 2 little side seats, right? Bring your friends all cramped in the back. I mean, this is a 5.2 liter V8 engine. There would be days I would lift the hood. Mind you, I don't know a thing about cars. I would just stare at it. I was just like amazed at what's happening under the hood here. And so I'd wash this thing, and then I put a new CD player in it with the little removable, face mask. You don't want it to get stolen. New speakers, put new speakers in it. I'd wash it. I'd wash that thing. I'd make sure no garbage was left in there. That's gross. It's not a garbage. It's a car. It's valuable. I'd wash this thing. I'd polish it. I'd make it look all nice. It'd get thirsty, and I would get gouged $1.67 a gallon to fill this thing. And then it would need things like brakes and tires, and so I would meet its needs, and I would wash it. I would wash it to the point of realizing that the early 90s Dodge, the contract they made with the paint supplier was actually problematic. Gray paint started coming off this thing. I was washing it so much, but the reality is, I was thinking about this thing so much because it was mine. Because I had a degree of ownership in this thing. Juxtapose that with earlier this year, family went on a vacation, we rented a car. I did none of those things. Right? There's a different degree when you realize there is something under your care, under your influence, under your ownership, there's a different degree of investment and of attention. And what we realize as followers of Jesus, which is what we are, is what we're doing here, Jesus is saying, I want you to own my mission and vision. I want you to be as passionate about the things I'm passionate about, that you would live that out. You would give your lives to it. And what we see, and if you want to follow along, and of course be on screen as well, is in Matthew chapter 4, we see the calling of the first followers of Jesus. We see Jesus begin to collect his first followers, and so we read this. This is in verse 18, Matthew 4, out of the NLT. It says, when Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw 2 bros, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew. And they're throwing a net into the water, for they fish for a living. Makes sense. If you fish for a living, you throw nets in water. Thank you, Matthew. Jesus called out to them, come and follow me, and I'll show you how to fish for people. And they left their nets at once and followed him. A little farther up the shore, he saw 2 other bros, James and John, sitting in a boat with their father, Zebedee, repairing their nets. And he called to them to come too. They immediately followed him, leaving their boat and their father behind. What Jesus' invitation, and it dovetails perfectly with last week, all of the values do. I love it. Jesus is saying, will you come and learn from me? Will you come and follow me? Will you come and spend time in my presence that you might become more like me? It's apprenticeship is what it is. We call it discipleship, but it's apprenticeship of becoming like Christ, a little Christ, Christian. That's what that means. And part of that, what we see is that there's a degree of ownership involved. It's relational. It's all about relationship with Jesus. And it's missional. It's outward-minded. It's a call to go and fish for others. It's not stagnant. It's not insular. It's not inward-focused. And it's for regular folks like you and me. There's nothing special about these guys. In fact, that's the point. And it's radical just how relational it is. And what I love, and this is from the Message paraphrase here, is I love that Jesus is very distinct as to what he's helping his followers understand of what it looks like, what it means to follow him. And it's different than religion. It's different than something that's man-made. It's different than something that's burdensome and just filled with all the weight of all kinds of rules and laws and expectations and regulations. And so Jesus says this. Again, I love this so much. Here's the invitation. Listen in. Are you tired? Worn out? Burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Look at the phrases in there. Come to me, get away with me, walk with me, work with me. Watch how I do it. Live freely and lightly. It's relational. It's not about Jesus extracting what can he get from us. No. It's what does Christ want for us? Life. To live freely and lightly. To recover our lives. The irony here, and this always just strikes me, Jesus is saying, if you're tired, if you're worn out, feel burdened, and then he uses a metaphor of a yoke. He's like, my yoke. The difference of what it looks like to live through life with me is far different. All these other things are exhausting and emptying in nature. You just feel kind of carved out. And yet with Christ, there's a togetherness, there's a withness, and there's a strength that comes. There's not a heavy, ill-fitting, burdensome life. No. It's life and life to the full, and it's with Christ at the very center. And so what we have for each of our values is actually a sentence where we use it, where we help define it. And so I just want to give it to you for this value of ownership. It's this. It's that we take ownership. Speaking of we, overlay. This is as individuals and then us as a community. We take ownership in God's mission through the church. And we see this again in Jesus' calling of his first followers. But if we drill in even further, if we look into just the nature of who God is, there's robust theology around this. I'm only going to spend time on a moment here. But you can see it throughout the whole of Scripture, throughout the arc of Scripture. But I want to point to it in a passage that many are familiar with. In fact, it came up even last week, and it's this. John 3:16 and 17. For this is how God loved the world. He gave his one and only Son so that everyone who believes in him will not perish but have eternal life. So what does God do? God loves, God gives. There's ascending. God sent his Son into the world, not to judge the world, but to save the world through him. God loved, God gave, God sent, God saves. God is missional in nature. God himself is owning the mission of love, the very source where it starts. For this is how God loved. It's the very basis of it, the genesis of it, the source of it. It's who God is. The love itself requires movement, pursuing, mission, movement. So then it's no surprise you get to the end of the Gospels, and in each one you see how Christ is commissioning, is sending out his followers, his apprentices, his learners, his students. And what I love is in John chapter 20. I'm just sticking with the same gospel here, from John 3 to John 20. And I dropped John 1, although I wish I would have left it in. We're going to be pressed. We're going to keep moving here. John 20, in the first Easter, Christ has just resurrected from the grave, fresh out, just boom, walking around, meeting his followers for the first time here in this upper room. Some of the first words that he speaks to his followers are these. As he spoke, he showed them the wounds in his hands and his side. Again, a reminder of the cross, of what had happened on Good Friday. They were filled with joy. Of course, they were filled with joy when they saw the Lord. And again, he said to them, peace be with you. I love that. Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, here's the thesis. As the Father has sent me, I am sending you. Then he breathed on them and said, receive the Holy Spirit. God is sending you. If you have two arms and maybe pointers, find two different people and point to them. Point to them right now. Just pick two people at random. Doesn't matter. It could be behind you, next to you. You could even poke them if you maybe only poke them if you know them. But say, God is sending you. Wow, okay, 7 people. Like God is sending you. God is sending even this little man right here in the blue, coming down the front. God is sending you. Point to yourself. Both fingers. God is sending me. Here's the thing, and what we talk about all the time, you see these words, and even if it was your first time here, you probably saw the words, everyone, everywhere. That's God's vision and mission. All people, all nations, everyone, everywhere. What we recognize, again, in this statement, we take personal responsibility for who is our everyone? Where is our everywhere? Who is it I have a heart for? Where is it that I'm passionate about getting to experience God's love and be transformed by it? That's your everyone. That's your everywhere. Live missionally. You've been sent. You've been sent. We have magnets even in the hallway with little blanks. You can draw in, write in, like who your everyone and everywhere is, and keep it on the fridge. Keep it somewhere where you're reminded that you were sent. Part of ownership is realizing that you're on mission. You're to own the vision and mission of God. That's no small thing. In fact, I was thinking through, what are some things that get in the way of this? What are some things that get in the way of this? Came up with 6 things, not exhaustive, 6 things. 1, fear. I think sometimes it's overwhelming. You feel the weight and the responsibility, even that statement like, wow, I get to play a part in God's story of redemption, renewal, restoration, all things being made new. God wants to include me in that. There's a weight to that. You feel like maybe you're afraid you're going to mess up. You will. It's okay. You can't break it. It'll be okay. But sometimes I think a fear sets in and maybe a little bit of a paralysis even. I know when we brought home our firstborn, and maybe any parents out there, maybe you can identify with this. When we left the hospital, I think it was dawning on me as I'm driving like 40 on the 405, just watching people just like race by me as I'm just like having a hard time staying in my lane. I'm trying to be so safe. And I'm realizing like there's no more button to press for a nurse just to show up. Like I'm feeling the weight of responsibility of what it means to be a parent. I'm realizing there's no going back. There's no returns. Like this one's mine. I don't even know what I'm doing. It's a little bit of that. Following Jesus is life altering. The commitment is massive. It impacts every area of your life for the rest of your life. And then it goes even past then. Second, I think just distractions. There's a lot of stories we can give our lives to. You can give your life to the story of a 1992 Dodge Dakota 4x4 extended cab. Like you can give your life to the story of fame or wealth or success or experiences. You can give your life to the story of a political party or a country or a nation. Or you can give your life to the story of God, to the greatest thing happening throughout all of history, to that which will ultimately last. But I think distractions, they come at us. They come at us. Another one, I think thinking, well, someone else would do it. Someone else would do it. I'll leave it to the professionals. I'll leave it to the people who know more than me. I'll leave it to the people who know less than me. I'll leave it to the people who make more than me. I'll leave it to the people who make less than me. I'll leave it to essentially just anyone other than yourself. No, you've been sent. There's an ownership in the mission and vision of what God's up to that only you can fulfill what God's destined, what your calling is. A very silly, short example, I think, of even as I'm able to kind of identify people moving a little bit through stages. I'll say the first stage is, we'll say just a guest to overlake. Let's say there's a piece of trash out in the parking lot. And I think a common guest response is, ooh, that's tacky. That doesn't look so good. I think an attender, as you move just past that, is like, oh, I should probably tell someone about that. I'll find someone with a lanyard or something. I'll tell them about that. Someone who's an owner is like, oh, that doesn't belong there. Picks it up, throws it away. Do you know how much the culture changes in a community when everyone leans in, takes ownership? Do you know how much that lightens the load for those that end up getting assigned of, oh, they'll do it. If everyone's all saying that and pointing to the same people, oh, they'll burn out. They'll crumble. It'll be exhausting. It'll be unsustainable. But to have shared ownership, that's different. To have a posture of, how can I help? What can I do? Oh, you know what? I actually see that I can step into this. I see someone's looking a little confused and lost. Maybe I can help them find their way. I see someone that's all by themselves. Maybe I should introduce myself, learn their name. You know, there's so many things that we can begin to do just in the context of a Sunday morning. I haven't even gotten to the rest of the week. But ownership changes culture. Cost is another one. I think we know it's inconvenient. Following Jesus, it's inconvenient. There's opportunity costs. There's other things you could be doing with your time, with your money, with your talents, with your treasures. I mean, the whole bit. There's going to be a cost. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable. Another one is trust issues, i.e. just giving up control. I like control. Anybody else? It's kind of nice, isn't it? Yeah. What happens when you follow Jesus is, oh, Jesus becomes Lord. Wait, what? What does that mean? I mean, there's so many things I'd rather do it my way. And when I look at the Jesus way, I'm like, that sounds really ridiculous and hard. Forgive them? Love them? Really? And so there's a degree of giving up control. Jesus is Lord. You're not. The last one, sixth one, again, this isn't exhaustive, is I think living from a place of just always well, what do others think? Well, what do they think of this? Well, what do they think of me? And there's a forgetfulness of the fact that there's an audience of one. There's the way of Jesus. That's what we're living into. I think sometimes it can be a fear of embarrassment. Every once in a while, maybe this is you too, I'll come across a video and I'm like, I am so inspired right now. That person had no shame. They stepped right into that, no problem. They knew it'd be silly. They knew that people laugh at them. You know what? They didn't care. In fact, they just stepped into it. So I want you to watch the most inspiring video I've seen in the last 2 weeks. Right here. This person may look familiar.
Oh, hey there, friend. Why am I dressed up, you ask? I'm getting ready for a party. Trick or treat, in fact. It's happening at Overlake in our front parking lot on Saturday, October 29th, 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. It's an event for the whole family. There's going to be lots of candy and lots of cool people hanging out and having fun. Hope to see you all there.
That is my favorite part. We've watched that so many times. Yeah, Pastor Tina, we love you. Oh, man. I think I've just ran up the view count on that video personally so much. It's so great. But here's this thing. Ownership is actually very, very simple. Very, very simple. I'm going to break it down right here. Very, very simple. Just follow Jesus. Just be with Jesus. Just spend time with Jesus. Just abide with Jesus. Just be with Jesus. Almost like a vine, where there's a branch that's grafted into the vine that produces fruit. I mean, it just happens. It just happens because of the connection, the intimacy. It's a great metaphor. I actually totally ripped it off from someone I very much love. Jesus said this in John chapter 15, verse 5. Jesus is saying, I'm the vine, you're the branches. If you remain in me, it's simple, 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 simple. If you remain in me and I in you, then you'll produce much fruit. Without me, I love the alternative. Look how blunt this is. This is why I love the CEB right here. Without me, you can't do anything. Oh, okay, there it is. There's the options. It's simple. Just a life with Jesus. Again, it's relational, you guys. Just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. Let's not conflate those two things. It is far from easy. Talk about the produce, right? Produce much fruit. The produce. One of the produces, the things that we produce in our lives, I don't know how that works, is peace. We're to produce lives of peace. Matthew 5, blessed are the peacemakers, for they'll be called the children of God. We're to be peacemakers. You know why that's so beautiful and just so troubling to me is it's beautiful because it sounds great. Who doesn't want to be known as a child of God? A peacemaker. Yeah. You know why I don't like that? It's actually an invitation to conflict. Yeah. To be a peacemaker is to go to places where there's actually not peace, where there's unrest. Oh, there's been so many bugs recently. Okay. I don't know what that means. Don't read too much into that. That's a little scary. Okay. Peace, get away from me, you fly. Right? We're not called to be peace wanters, peace likers. We're not called to be peace cheerleaders. We're not called to just change our profile pic to, I love peace. Yeah. No. It's a call into the hard spaces and places where shalom is needed, where God's flourishing is needed. My family system, I learned how to appease and avoid. I don't know about you, okay? Some people, they beat around the bush. I camp over here. When I see the bush, I'm like, Like, this is hard. To produce a life of peace is hard. That's just one of the things our life is to produce. Following Jesus, simple, not easy. I can't tell you how encouraged, how grateful, how thankful, how proud, how I think just inspired I have been over the past year, the number of people who have gone through a Be the Bridge group. We've had multiple of these groups that are pursuing racial justice and reconciliation, and there's learning, just all the values we've really talked about, bravery, equity, learning, ownership. I mean, all these things I just see embodied in this group of people. We had a potluck here on Thursday night. It was so great, so fun, so much good food, so much good conversation, and that's just an expression of this. And there's so many more opportunities in front of us to step into, to lean into. And peace is just one example. So one question, and I think this is important for us to realize, is even when you pause and think through just what's happening right here, right now, there is so much ownership that has made this possible. I mean, in fact, the seats we're sitting in, like someone made that possible. The people, if you checked your child or kids or grandkids or a very young person you came with into the Kid Town ministry, there's ownership happening there, pouring into these lives. There's ownership to make audio possible, video possible. Thank you, camera people. Houston. We have a little room over here. It's not all the way in Houston. It's just over here. I don't know why we call it Houston, but there's buttons and knobs and switches and all these type things that make things possible. There's ownership required. There's ownership required. I had tea today. I haven't had much tea ever really in my life, and I think I love peppermint tea now. Someone helped make that possible. Again, we're just talking about one little hour, one little shared space in the day. We haven't even gone back to, we'll say, Overlake's history of 54 years. We haven't even gone back. We say we take ownership, personal responsibility for the mission of God through the church, capital C church. We're not even talking about the last 2,000 years. People that have invested, poured out their lives, some even laying down their lives for the vision and mission of God. We stand upon those before us. Ownership's why we're here, and it's why we have to keep and always keep asking the question, what are we handing off? What are we preparing? What are we leaving to the coming generation? Or another way to ask it, what are we not? What are we not? Something that's on Neely and I's kind of legacy list of what we would love to see happen in our time as co-leads here is we would love to see no more debt on this building. No more. There's currently $8 million left on the balance. It's property that's worth 10 times that. I mean, but we just feel this call of like, release that burden to the next generation. I mean, you may not know this. The church, we're able to rent out a lot of spaces, indoors, outdoors as well, parking lot as well. And thankfully, I mean, by God's grace, all that rental income actually covers all the mortgage. It's awesome. It's very cool. And, yeah, one person. I'm as excited as you. That's right. Yeah, someone who does their budget. You know what that means. Yeah. Can you imagine? So that's like 600 grand plus, actually. That actually doesn't have to go to a mortgage payment. It gets to go to ministry. Like, here's the type things that we're thinking, even as we've been praying this month. Man, 27 acres, what could be? 244,000 square feet, what could be, Lord? What could be? A growth mindset. Seeing, man, Spirit, lead us into what you would have. And if I'm honest, there's different headwinds that I have noticed we just face as we are trying to move forward into these type of things. So I'll give you 4 of them. In my notes, they're listed as 5, and I found that earlier. So in case I say headwind number 5 and you're taking notes and it throws you off, just know it's number 4. That's my mistake, not yours. Headwind number 1, consumerism. We've just been wired and socialized to think we're just made to consume goods and services. The reality is, if Paul heard the phrase church shopping, he'd be like, what? We're not consumers, we're contributors. We're active participants in the body of what Christ is up to in this world. Headwind number 2, just problematic teaching. And I don't mean just problematic teaching. I mean problematic teaching to the point that it has destroyed trust in the church. Dangerous forms of prosperity gospel and any other thing. Throw it in the mix. The amount of cynicism that it's driven, skepticism that's driven, it makes me angry. And if you have been on the receiving end of that, I want to apologize to you on behalf of pastors, spiritual leaders, church leaders who ought to know better. But that is a very real headwind that we face. Headwind number 3 is actually no teaching. It's actually the absence of good theology. It's actually the absence of understanding what it looks like, again, to have ownership in God's vision and mission in this world. We had this little group. There was about 6 of us on staff, and we were sitting down and we were just talking about the spiritual discipline of giving, of your finances, a portion of your income. And we just went around and we were sharing, like, well, when did you learn? Or when did you start? Or how did it go? And there was just such a variety. Some of us as a kid, others college, others young adult, others as an adult. And it varied. And it was quite interesting. The common denominator in all of it, it was taught. They had to learn somewhere. It just like kind of kerplunk into their head, like, oh, I better start giving. No, it was taught. It was practiced. My own story. As a little kid, I didn't even know any better. I thought giving was like brushing your teeth. When I'd mow lawns, I'd come home, get my $5 bill, $10 bill, inflation. I know, it was amazing when I started getting paid 10. And I bring it to my mom, and she'd break it up so that I had tenths, so that I could set aside the first 10%, which we call a tithe. That's a biblical principle here, is you send that aside and you give and you save and you spend. And so my mom would just kind of help me with that. My parents would just kind of instill that into me with little envelopes. And so it was just a part of what I understood as just being the church, taking ownership. And then I remember it was about 10 or 11 years ago, and it just kind of became rote. I wouldn't even think about it. It just kind of happened. I remember 10 or 11 years ago, I just remember just being like, whoa, my mind was kind of blown a little bit. And what had happened was I had heard someone sharing a story of how they were choosing to cap their lifestyle, to limit their living expenses, that they could be a reverse tither. And I'm like, I don't even understand. Well, what does that even mean? And they're like, we want to be able to live on 10% and give away 90%. And I was like, what? And there was this whole discussion and study of the early church and just how radical they were. And it's crazy. The book of Acts is amazing. It's my favorite. It's my favorite. I know I say that about a lot of things. Acts is my favorite book of the Bible. It's just this radical form of hospitality and generosity. So I remember at the time we were dinks, dual income, no kids. We had 2 jobs, no kids. And I remember every 6 months-ish to a year or so, just bumping our giving by just 1%. And I can't tell you, the amount of joy that comes, the amount of freedom that came in that season was just so unexpected and so fun. And yes, it helped. We had such limited expenses. Truth be told, over the last few years, we've done the same staircase just downward. As there's grad school and there's kids and diapers are expensive, everything's expensive. But the reality is, it's always been a part of what we have done first. And it's what we still do. And even the reason I share is because of what I even said earlier. I think it's important for people to realize we're in this. We don't just get up here and yak. No. We want to follow Jesus. I want to be a disciple of Jesus. I want to be a model of what ownership looks like in the vision and mission of Christ in this world. I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, if fast forward, I learned something at 10 where I had no bills. If I was 37 now, I am 37 now, it'd be far different. It would take some maybe setting aside 1%, and then maybe 2, and then 3. I mean, almost like training for a race. It wouldn't be a sudden change, but there is a call to this, to grow into this. And then the last headwind, and we'll land here, is this: perception. I think it's easy to come in, a building that's beautiful, by the way, it's great, such a gift, and to think, oh, this place is set. They don't need me. I'll just coast. I'll just kind of warm the bench. No. Let me tell you, we need everyone. It takes all of us. Currently, about 46% of our Sunday attendance is actively participating in giving. You talk to people that kind of understand dynamics and stuff, they say you need at least 60% just to be sustainable, just to be able to grow. This is an area for us to grow in. There's 54%, and I'll get to this now, as I can't help but always reframe things, is that there is 54% opportunity here. There, to step in and to grow. I mean, currently we're using our reserves as a stopgap, which they're actually designed to be an emergency fund. As we're rebuilding, again, it takes everyone. But to have a growth mindset, again, we're only at half capacity. What can we do? 27 acres, 244,000 square feet. Let's press into God's vision. Reframe number 2 is that we can all do something. Too often, I think, because we can't do the whole thing, we'll say maybe 10%, we end up just checking out and doing nothing. What if it's just $10 every month, every couple weeks? Whatever the first step looks like, doing something. You know, Jesus took a kid's Lunchable and used it to feed the masses. Don't discredit how small of a gift you give. Don't do it. You don't know the dignity that comes to someone when they come in and they take a shower during the week. You don't know the impact that has. A couple weeks ago, there was a middle schooler who came to church on Sunday with his family, and afterwards, hearing the story of this young boy, he goes, "This church is my vibe." And I'm like, yeah, you don't know the impact that you're having in that life. I mean, there's so many things that we can't even measure because they'll just never happen because someone gets to grow into a flourishing life as opposed to one that's burdened and broken. Don't think your gift is too small. Lean in and join. Next reframe is we're just getting started. You guys, we're coming out of historically the hardest time the church has had in a couple generations. We're just getting started. There's so much newness. I can't tell you just how encouraged I am every Sunday meeting so many new people that are sharing parts of their story and what's happening here at Overlake. Some of you have been here 2 months, maybe 20 minutes, 2 hours, I don't know. So much newness. We're just getting started. Reframe number 4. We need time for people to heal to then move into helping. There's a comment made to Neely of someone who felt like when they came to Overlake, it was like they were in triage, and now they're leading a group. It takes time. We need to be a space that's holding, that there's healing that's happening, and where there's not a kind of an enabling of a stagnation. No. There's growth. There's opportunity now, care for others. And then the 5th one, final one is this. It's worth it. It's worth it. There's a sense of freedom and joy as you participate in the very characteristic of who God is. God gives freely. Again, Jesus doesn't want from you. He wants for you a life of fullness and freedom. There's so much more I could say, I won't say, but the invitation is, what does it look like for you to take a step into ownership? What's that look like here to live into this value? Let's do this. Let's stand. And as you stand, I want you to close your eyes. I want you to hear these words from Christ. If you catch nothing else, catch these words. Own these words. Personalize these words. It's this. Are you tired? Worn out? Burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. Let's respond in worship.
Can we give God a hand clap of praise this morning? God, you are so good. You are so good. Thank you for who you are and all that you are. Who you are and all that you are, mighty God. Good morning. Good morning. We talked about ownership, and something that Pastor Pat said that really touched me. I even wrote it down. It said, give your life to the story of God. And he asked us, what story are we giving our life to? That really challenged me. I want us to think about those things as we walk into our lives and ownership and parenting and all those different areas. What are we giving our life to? Distractions, fear. The message really impacted me. I was in Kid Town this morning, hanging out with the kiddos. That was fun. If anybody ever wants to hang out with the kiddos or HSM, middle school, worship team, please come talk to us. Anybody with a lanyard will be able to point you in a good direction and take ownership of our kids here. Before we head out, I just want to remind us that there are prayer rooms right up on the second floor that you can go visit and be prayed for. Please take time. There's a team there that is wanting to pray with you and align with you. As well, I just want to let you know as well that when you scan that QR code, and people at home, when you click that link and you put in your prayer request, they are being prayed for. It's not just a thing that we do. And I just want to kind of bless us on the way out of here. So if we can just lift our hands. Lord God, thank you for who you are and all that you are. Thank you for the message that you've given to us. I pray that we put it inside of our hearts to take ownership of the story you have given us and step into that life. In your name we pray. Amen. Have a blessed week, guys. See you next week. Take care.
Constant, not dependent on what I see, and I can always trust you know what I need. And now I know that I can trust you rightly. And you came through the sky like